They infect and spread. Good ideas are like a super virus. They spread, they infect, they mutate, they spread and they infect. So, with this in mind, I'd like to talk about some really good ideas that I think about there. First one is the Human Declaration of Human Rights, and being a world citizen. The world citizen philosophy started with a young man, really, called Gary Davis in America. And what happened after the Second World War, he went to Geneva to a UN meeting, and he put forward the idea of world citizenship, which means that instead of just thinking as an Englishman or a Dutchman, you think like a world citizen. And for me, the biggest part of being a world citizen is taking responsibility for every other human being on this planet. So, things like Africa, where there's all these people starving to death, it is our responsibility to stop this. Our personal responsibility. Mr. Gary Davis is a really good exponent of this. I suggest you all, when you've left here, you look this guy up. World Citizen, Gary Davis. And he'll tell you a lot more about what this is really. But for me, basically, it comes down to accepting responsibility for every other human being. And with that comes all these beautiful freedoms in your head. Because you're no longer just thinking, how can I look after my little group? You start thinking, how can we look after the full world? The UDHR, as I like to call it, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This was a document that was basically written by a group of 8 after the Second World War. I think the first draft of the one we've got now was in 1948. In 1950, I love this, in 1950 there was an all worldwide publicity about it, because one of the things to say about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is that it should be prominently displayed, particularly in schools and education centres. So, if we'd done this from the start, we would understand that there is more than just our country involved. There is an whole planet out there, and we, as members of that community, that planet, must accept responsibility. I'll keep saying this, you'll hear me say this all the way through. We must start accepting responsibility for every single human being on this planet. I think now that what's happened is because this document is such a wonderful thing. I can give you I think I wrote 26 of the 30 articles down. I can tell you them all if you wish, or we can just pick on a couple, if you don't mind, because there are a couple which are just so relevant to what's going on now that I think we have to talk about it a little bit, or I don't. Number 1, all human beings are born free and equal. All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. This is something that me and you were talking about earlier. I've got one little complaint about them, the old declaration. That is, it's very male orientated. Okay, let's see where I put the first one. Here we go. To an effective remedy by the competent national tribunals for acts violating the fundamental rights granted in. Is. It's not what it says, it's just the fact that it specifies in, not in yeah? So it's very male oriented, but that's my only problem with this. Okay.
Women have learned to deal with that.
Yeah, well, I mean, we now, this was wrote in 1948, very male dominated world at that point. Now was sort of becoming a more equal, slightly more equal. And
it's a strange thing, you can't look at the declaration without the historical context.
Yeah.
How can you have a universal declaration with historical context? But, well...
Well, the historical context comes from the Second World War in particular, where there was all these atrocities being committed in all sorts of places, and then just after, in Palestine in particular, where the Jews and the Israelites had this big thing going, and one group of people was pretty dominated by the other group. This is where the Gary Davis thing in particular came, the Well Citizen. He was focused on what was going on in the Middle East, where there was all this unfairness, shall we say. I'm going to use unfairness because I think what we're lacking in this present system is fairness and equality. Fairness in particular. There's no one country that is being fair to its people. There's no one continent being fair to any other continent. We're just us. We're first. We've got to have what we need and forget everybody else. This is why I really like the Well Citizen, because you start thinking it's a slightly different way when you say, I accept responsibility for every other human being. It changes your mentality. Everyone has the right to life, liberty and security of person. Everyone. And that's not going on neither. No, I personally don't feel safe. And I know a lot of other people who don't feel safe in this world. No one shall be subjected to torture or to cruel, inhuman or degrading treatment or punishment. Well, as we know, there's a massive thing going on with the Guantanamo Bay, where every human right that's in here is just being thrown out the window because they're terrorists. And this is what's happened for me. This document was a universal document. This meant that it was for everybody. What they've done, in 1976, some 140 countries had done all these ratifications, added all these little bits to the point where it became international law. I don't see it being used as a law anymore. I see it just being thrown out the window and the governments of the world doing exactly what they want. But I recommend what I've been saying to everybody is print them out and put them somewhere in the Occupy movement, at the camps or in the buildings. Just put it so when people come to see you, you can go, look, this is, I don't know if you want to, but this is how I do it. This is what I'm trying to create. A world that is using the Declaration of Human Rights. And they're not. Nobody is. Everybody's just totally ignored it because of national laws. And for me, the Universal Declaration supersedes national laws. But that's my opinion. I've talked to a few lawyers about this, and they're telling me that it cannot be used because it's superseded by the EU, is the particular one, because I'm in Europe. So let's start using this, let's start getting it out there, take it to schools. You was telling me the other day that certain schools do actually have it up. I never saw it when I was at school. I never heard about it when I was at school. Or if I did, it was just to do with the end of the Second World War, and it might have been a little one lesson where it was mentioned. I can give you a little bit of history if you're really interested, because I did write quite a lot down about it, and just like the actual declarations I wrote, some of the stuff, but I think it's beholden to you yourselves to sit down and check it out yourselves. I can sit here and talk about it for as long as you want, because I've really studied this, and I've had a little look at why it came about, what the thinking was, and I've been talking to a lot of people about this, and somebody said that it was a Western document, it was Western thinking behind it. But if you look at the people who are in it, there's a Chineseman, there's a guy from Chile, okay, there's French, there's American. But I think that the guy who wrote it, the initial one was a guy called René Cassin from France. And then there was a panel of 9 people who finalised it, ironed all the creases out, which then became the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. 9 people, as I say, I could give you the names, but...
Well, I'm interested in the nationality of the 9 people.
Okay, well, we've got a Frenchman, we've got a guy from Lebanon, Charles Malik, a Russian, China, France, USA, UK, Australia, Chile, I can't read that last one. Oh, Canada. Sorry. Canada. So I think and it does actually say that the people that were chosen to do this were chosen because of their geographical distribution, is how they put it. So I think the Western thing is a bit purple. But anyway, so it was wrote by people, 9 different people from 9 different countries, and it did try to get people from all sides.
Except Africa.
Sorry?
Except Africa, apparently.
South Africa?
No, Africa. You should
Africa?
mention Africa.
Lebanon, USSR, China, France, USA, UK, Australia, Chile, Canada.
No Africans.
We can go into that bit if you wish, because
No.
well, no, I'm actually going to now you mentioned it. The reason there's no Africans, as far as I think, okay, these are my thoughts, is because South Africa has never really been taken seriously as a continent by Africa, because what's going to happen to the first world countries now happened to Africa over 100 years ago. So Africa's never really been considered of any use to anybody, because it's
Except for resources.
except for the resources. As we all know, that's going on everywhere now. It's not any war that's gone on for the last, I don't know, I'll say it's 30 years. There's not been a war for anybody's defence, it's been a war to get the resources from that country. I said this about Iraq and Afghanistan. Don't look at what they're saying, look at what resources they've got. I wish I'd have remembered this before I come here, but... Okay, sorry, it's just, but I can say this anyway, because this is just a little sad